Hello everyone, this is going to be the fourth lecture in the course of Shakespearean Studies. Today's lecture is on The Merchant of Venice by William Shakespeare. First of all, I will be making introduction to the play. Secondly, I will talk about its characters. Thirdly, I will be talking about its plot. And finally, I would analyze the play for you. So here we go on the next slide. Introduction. The Merchant of Venice is written by William Shakespeare around 1597. The Merchant of Venice is a comedy about a bitter and detested Jewish moneylender Shylock, who seeks revenge against the Christian merchant who has defaulted on a loan. Merchant's provocative and painful subject matter has earned it a reputation as a problem play that continued to ask a series of difficult questions 400 years after it was first staged. For Shakespeare, writing for an English audience about a Jewish moneylender might have seemed unusual. Officially, there were no Jews in 16th century England, because they had been banished at the end of 13th century under the Edict of Expulsion. Some studies suggested there were fewer than 200 Jews in Elizabethan England. Only about 100 have been identified by historians. Most of these Jews were outwardly practicing Christians, and many of them were probably Jews who practiced their religion in secret. Characters of the play: Antonio, a merchant of Venice; Bassanio, Antonio's friend, in love with Portia; Gratiano, Celenio, Celerio, friends of Antonio and Bassanio; Lorenzo, a friend of Antonio and Bassanio, in love with Jessica; Portia, a rich heiress; Nerissa, Portia's maid, in love with Gratiano; Shylock, a rich Jew, moneylender, father of Jessica; Tubal, a Jew, Shylock friends; Jessica, daughters of Shylock, in love with Lorenzo. The story takes place entirely in Venice, Italy, although there is no evidence that Shakespeare ever traveled abroad. He often set his plays in foreign lands, and Italy was his most used destination. The Italian cities of Rome, Venice, Padua, Verona, Mantua, and Milan all make appearances in Shakespeare plays such as The Tempest, Two Gentlemen of Verona, Much Excitement About Nothing, Julius Caesar, and Romeo and Juliet. Bassanio, a young Venetian of a noble rank, wishes to woo the beautiful and wealthy heiress Portia Belmont. Having squandered his estate, Bassanio approaches his friend Antonio, a wealthy merchant of Venice, a kind and generous person, who has previously and repeatedly bailed him out for 3,000 ducats needed to subsidize his expenditures as suitor. Antonio agrees, but since he is cash poor, his ships and merchandise are busy at sea, he promises to cover a bond if Bassanio can find a lender. So Bassanio turns to a Jewish moneylender, Shylock, and names Antonio as the loan's guarantor. Shylock, who hates Antonio because of his anti-Judaism, and Antonio's customary refusal to borrow or lend money with interest, is at first reluctant, citing abuse he has suffered at Antonio's hand, but finally agrees to lend Antonio the sum without interest upon the condition that if Antonio is unable to repay it at the specified date, he may take a pound of Antonio's flesh. Bassanio does not want Antonio to accept such a risky condition. Antonio is surprised by what he sees as the moneylender's generosity, and he signs the contract. Meanwhile, in Belmont, Portia is packed with her suitors. Her father left a will stipulating each of her suitors must choose correctly from one of the three caskets, one each of gold, silver, and lead. If he picks the right casket, he gets Portia. The first suitor, the Prince of Morocco, chooses the gold casket, interpreting its slogan, "Who chooseth me shall gain what many men desire," as referring to Portia. The second suitor, the arrogant Prince of Aragon, chooses the silver casket, which proclaims, "Who chooseth me shall get as much as he deserves," imagining himself to be full of merit. Both suitors leave empty-handed. Venice, Antonio's ships are reported lost at sea. This leaves him unable to satisfy the bond. Shylock is even more determined to exact revenge from Christians after his daughter Jessica had fled home and eloped with Christian Lorenzo, taking a substantial amount of Shylock wealth with her, as well as a prized turquoise ring which has a gift to Shylock from his late wife Leah. Shylock has Antonius brought before court demanding that he be paid, not with money, but with the pound of flesh Antonius agreed upon, to be cut from his living body. Between these two widely desperate plot lines, mixing both high comedy and disturbing tragedy, audiences can easily become uncomfortable or confused by what they are supposed to be feeling while watching the play. However, in the hands of a masterful director and actors, the two halves of the story complement each other, each one relieving the tensions created by its opposite storyline. And the character of Sherlock, who for years was seen as an anti Semitic exaggerator, is now seen as one of the most complex and sympathetic villains in Shakespeare's work. Some of the acts and scenes of the play. You have too much respect upon the world. They lose it, they do buy it with much care. I hold the world, but as the world a stage, where every man must play a part, and mine a sad one. I do know of these that therefore only are reputed wise for saying nothing. God made him, and therefore let him pass for a man. I will buy with you, sell with you, talk with you, walk with you, and so following, I will not eat with you, drink with you, nor pray with you. I will feed fate the ancient grudge I bear him. He hates our sacred nation, and he rails, even there where merchant most do congregate. The devil can cite scripture for his purpose. A goodly apple rotten at the heart. Oh, what a goodly outside falsehood had. All that glister is not gold. Must I hold the candle to my shames? But love is blind, and lovers cannot see the pretty follies that themselves commit. If it will feed nothing else, it will feed my revenge. I'm a Jew, had not a Jew eyes, had not a Jew hands, organs, dimensions, senses, affection, patience, fed with the same food, hurt with the same weapons, subject to the same diseases, healed by the same means, warmed and cooled by the same winter and summer, as a Christian is. If you prick us, do we not bleed? If you tickle us, do we not laugh? If you poison us, do we not die? And if you wrong us, shall we not revenge? If we are like you in that rest, we will resemble you in that. The villainy you teach me I will execute, and it shall go hard, but I will better the instruction. There's no vice so simple, but assume some mark of virtue in his outward parts. The quality of mercy is not strained, it dropped as the gentle rain from heaven upon the place beneath. It is twice blessed, it blesseth him that gives and him that takes. Tea is mightiest in the mightiest. It becomes the throne monarch better than his crown. It is enthroned in the hearts of kings. It is an attribute to God himself. Therefore, Jew, though justice be thy plea, consider this, that in the course of justice none of us should see salvation. We do pray for mercy, and that the same prayer do teach us all render the deeds of mercy. The Merchant of Venice contains one of Shakespeare's most powerful speeches, called The Quality of Mercy. It's given by Portia, who, disguised as young male lawyer, is arguing the case against Shylock. It is saying that mercy, like the rain, falls on everyone. No matter what the person is or has done, they are still given mercy. Kings fear it because it doesn't make them better than everyone else. And both God and humans can offer mercy. The Merchant of Venice has been a popular subject for adaptation on film and television, with 20 films being made, the first in 1908. Other notable films include a 1973 version with Laurence Olivier, a 1980 version for the BBC Complete Works of William Shakespeare series, a 2001 television adaptation directed by Trevor Nunn. Despite its many good qualities, it's still considered a difficult play to stage. It is often in danger controversies over its sensitive racial subject matter. Analysis of the play. The Merchant of Venice is essentially a play about property, in telling the story of a merchant who treats his own flesh as a property to secure a loan, and the moneylender who calls in the debt. The play asks questions about the value of life itself. Throughout the play, tangible objects such as rings and caskets stands for intangible ideas about love and fidelity. A test where three suitors must choose between silver, lead, and gold caskets function to remind audiences that all that glister isn't gold, and the true value of life has no financial equivalent. However, money plays a significant role for most of the characters, for whom financial security equals independence. Language about penalties, bonds, and punishments add to the sense of life reduced to commercial transactions. The fact that the most materialistic, greedy characters in the play ends up having lost both his physical wealth as well as his daughter and his religion, warn against the dangers of excessive greed. While the play culminates in trial scenes, Portia's soliloquy suggests that mercy, or forgiveness, is ultimately more important than legal justice. The major conflict driving the plots of The Merchant of Venice takes place between Bassanio, who wants to marry Portia to gain the financial means to pay back his debt to Antonio, and Shylock, who wants revenge on Antonio for lending money without interest and for his anti Semitic insults. Shylock's desires for revenge on Antonio implies a deeper desire to defend his humanity and his way of life. During the play's provocative incident, Bassanio uses Antonio's credits to secure a loan from Shylock, binding Antonio to Shylock and making their final confrontation inevitable. Though the men separate after this incident, the stakes of their conflict are raised during the rising actions of the play. First, Lancelot and then Jessica rob and abandon Shylock in quick succession, fueling his fury. Next, Bassanio wins the chance to marry Portia in the casket game, fulfilling his superficial desires for money and marriage, and bringing him close to proving his character by repaying Antonio in money, love, and loyalty. Finally, Antonio's ship fails to return, giving Shylock has the opportunity to get his revenge, and Bassanio the opportunity to prove his character by coming to Antonio's rescue. The conflict between Bassanio's desire to redeem his character by proving himself a loyal friend and Sherlock's desire to defend his humanity by enacting revenge on Antonio comes to a head in the play's climatic trial scene. Sherlock makes the case for his right to collect his bond by arguing that he has the same rights as any other hateful characters in Venice. But Portia, discussed as Balthazar argues that in trying to collect on his loan, Shylock has threatened Antonio's life and therefore broken the law. Not only can Shylock not collect the money he loaned, he is stripped of his livelihood and religion, signaling that the world of the play will not accept Shylock's humanity or his way of life. Bassanio, Portia, Greciano, Nerissa, Lorenzo, and Jessica all finished the play happily married and financially secured in Belmont. While the couples in the play end up happy, Sherlock's punishment seems neither merciful nor just. Not only is he unable to collect the money he is rightfully owed by Bassanio, he loses the rest of his wealth, his daughter, and his Jewish faith. While Shakespeare contemporaries would have seen Shylock's conversion to Christianity as a victory for his immortal soul, Shylock's forced conversion is shockingly anti Semitic and unjust to modern readers. Let me give you assignment. Analyze two of the following four themes of The Merchant of Venice: self interest versus love, the divine quality of mercy, hatred as a cyclical phenomenon, gender and sex. And that is how we come to the end of this lecture. Talk to you next week. Bye for now.